Hello, Dr. Hayes.
Hello, can you hear me?
We're trying to figure out our volume here.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Dr. Hayes?
Yes, I can.
We
No
cannot
problem.
hear you yet.
Again? Can you hear me now? Hello?
What did we do
Hmm.
last time?
Last time I turned my volume up, and I've done that all the way to 100. It's still, it's the highest it'll go. Let me try muting and unmuting again.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We still can't hear you.
Hmm. I don't know what else to do. It says it's on. It's not muted. Is yours turned off somehow? No? Hmm. Uh, yeah, mine is on the highest volume.
Now we can hear you.
All of a sudden, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I looked at the settings, but I hadn't changed anything. Very good.
We can hear you loud and clear now.
Excellent.
Welcome, Dr. Hayes. This is the second section, Introduction to Black Catholic Theology, and we have used quite a number of your essays and of your books as main text. And so the students have been looking forward to a conversation with you today. So I'll let you start with it by first, please introduce yourself and give us an insight into the work that you do.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Diana Hayes. I'm a emerita professor of systematic theology at Georgetown University, where I taught for about 25 years. I'm now retired. Excuse me. I also teach at other schools like Oblate School of Theology, Emory, and others. Whenever they ask me, I'm often asked to do a 2-week or 4-week class over the summer. And if I feel like going to that city, I go there. I also have taught at Xavier since, the 1995, I think. But I haven't taught in the past 2 or 3 years. Hopefully I'll come back again some point though. So I said I'm a systematic theologian. My doctorate is I have 3 doctorates actually. One's in law, one's in religious studies, and one is in systematic theology or dogmatic theology. It's called the Pontifical Doctorate in Dogmatic Theology. I'm the first African American woman to have earned that degree, and I earned it at the Catholic University of Leuven in Leuven, Belgium. I did the first 5 years at Catholic University in Washington, and then 3 years in Belgium. I was surprised, I have to admit, when I realized that there were no other Black women who had this degree, and there aren't that many white women either. But I chose it because I'm a convert to Catholicism. I became a Catholic in my 30s. I was a Methodist, AME Zion, prior to that, but not practicing. Um, and I chose the Pontifical Doctorate, quite frankly, because it required 7 to 8 years of study. And I figured it would take me that long to figure out what in the world I was doing in the Catholic Church in the first place. So I enjoyed the 8 years of study, and began teaching at Georgetown the fall of 1988. My area of specialization is, of course, Black and womanist liberation theologies, but I also deal with race and religion, uh, different world religions, and other similar subjects like that. I've been a professor, or had been a professor, for over almost 40 years now since I've gotten my degree. I've written or edited 9 books, and a large number of articles have been published. I'm not working on anything right now, though, because I decided I needed a rest. So I'm taking it easy this year. That's about it for me. Any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. We have a number. So, in terms of being a womanist, you have to speak out so she can hear.
Yeah, a little louder.
In the terms of being a womanist and a Black Catholic theologian, would you say that there's a sense of triple marginalization?
Oh, most certainly. If you think being a Black man is difficult, try being a Black female Catholic celibate theologian. People don't know where to put you or what they're supposed to do with you. When I first started lecturing, doing my lectures outside of Georgetown, I would get invitations from all over the country, all over the world, really. And the questions, sometimes the subjects would be things I hadn't really thought about talking about. And I began to think that people were just trying to see if I was real, knew what I was talking about. Fortunately, I survived that. But yes, being a Black female Catholic theologian is unique. There are still very few Black Catholic theologians, but ironically, most of them today are women working in various areas of the church. So it's been difficult, but it's been, quite frankly, a lot of fun also, because I've been able to explore and exploit the fact that I am someone they're not expecting in terms of what I try to do, what I try to teach, what I try to write about in my books.
How do you feel the role of womanists in the Black community has changed less than 10 years ago? This is with considerations to the new conversations about becoming more inclusive to LGBTQ+.
That is I would, not so new now, but initially when Blacks, Protestants, and myself started writing, I have to admit we did not talk very much about the LGBTQ people. It was, I think, an oversight on our part, but it was an area that most of us, many of us, I would say, did not have that much experience. I think it's changed greatly, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, for which I'm very grateful. And I think but I think we still have a long way to go in terms of being much more inclusive. One of the issues that are still of concern, I think, in womanist theology, and really in all theologies, is that we tend to speak from our own perspective. And so if you're not familiar with LGBTQ persons, you tend not to write about them and not to speak about them. But that is changing, for which I think is very good. And it's a matter of trying to work with them. What I like to see is when we come together at the American Academy of Religion or at different professional societies to try and listen to each other and be more open and progressive with each other. And that's slowly, I think, beginning to change things. We certainly have a lot more members now of the theology profession who are of the LGBTQ community, and that also helps, because then they can bring their own particular voices in and discuss issues in areas that we may have overlooked or, quite frankly, not even thought about.
Do you believe the modern day civil rights movement has strayed away from being led by prominent Black religious voices?
I think in some ways it has, but I think that's very good because it was sort of held in captivity by religious voices. And part of that is because historically in the Black community, those with the most education and intellectual development were ministers. That's no longer true. I'm a single woman, I'm celibate. I am not a priest or a seminarian. Yet I believe my voice is just as valid. I've had 8 years of experience in studying theology and over 30 something years in teaching and writing theology. So I think that has changed and is continuing to change. For example, those who are in the movement with regard to Black Lives Matter, these young women who were also, I believe, of the LGBTQ community, are not that interested in hooking up with the religious side of things. I think they need to, I think we need to, but it can no longer be that the ministers come in and say, okay, this is the way we're going to do it. It has to be more expansive, more open, more um, what's the word I want? Well, it has to be more open to the particular perspectives of the different peoples in the Black community. We have to be aware that there is not just one set formula for all Blacks in the community, whether they're Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, or atheist, or whatever. And we need to be talking together.
In this expansion of dialogue, what impact do you think that's had on the overall effectiveness of the movement, like from that shift?
I think we're still shifting in many ways. I have to admit, I have not been as active in the movement over the past 5 or really 10 years, sadly, because of my own health. I had to retire from teaching at Georgetown in 2011 because of recurring problems with rheumatoid arthritis, which is the chronic illness that I have. And so I have sort of fallen away from some of the dialogue that's taking place, but I continue to read and listen to whatever I can with regard to that. And I think we're still learning from each other, and we're still becoming engaged with each other. But I think what is uniquely different is the voice of Black women, which historically has not been allowed to speak on its own. And finally, we are getting more women who are engaged in these discussions and discerning what the church, whether Catholic or Protestant, we don't sadly do that with the Orthodox Church, but whether those two churches especially, quite frankly, are going to continue to serve the Black community, and if so, in what ways? Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to clarify something from the point of view of culture. The first part of it is looking back a few years, maybe the last 4 or 5 decades, and then looking to where we are right now.
Exactly.
Is the impact of culture on Black families on the first level, impact of culture on the families, and then secondly, looking at the question of religion being part of Black culture, right from enslavement up to this moment where now we have
and we have to go beyond enslavement to back to Africa.
Yes.
People of African descent are a religious people and have always been a religious people, even though they may not belong to a particular church or denomination, but they are still deeply religious in their own way.
And so that's why I'm asking for our time, knowing that a lot of people the age of my students are no longer religiously inclined. Looking forward in another 2 or 3 decades, do you think there's going to be some impact, taking into consideration that the religious belief has always been, I can almost claim, bedrock of
Right, it
black
is.
people. So these are the two questions I have.
Those were two questions.
The first one was about the family.
Uh,
The impact of culture on Black family. The second one is
uh,
about faith.
okay. In terms of culture, that has been a big issue. You know, they keep talking about the culture wars and all of that within the United States. I think young people today are speaking out more than they used to, and that's very good. But I do think they also need to learn from whence they've come, like these students in this class are doing, so that they know when they're what they're talking about when they're talking about it. Too often, we find young people speaking from their own perspective, which is good, but not realizing that there's a bigger picture that has slowly begun to be developed. Because we have to realize Black history, this course that you're teaching, Black Catholic theology, didn't exist 30 years ago, let alone, 50 or 60 years ago. So we are still breaking out and breaking into new understandings and new ideas that have not historically existed in the past. In terms of the future of faith, I think there will always be faith in the Black community, but I think right now there is difficulty trying to discern in what direction that faith is going to. We have sort of a, uh, not a schism, but how would I call it? Well, there's a division, you could say, within the Black church itself. Those who believe in basically pie in the sky when you die, and that if you're just patient and wait, things will get better. And those who, mostly liberation theologians and their followers, who believe that we need to be taking action to bring about change, not just in the church, but in the society as a whole. I spoke about this in this morning's class. Charles Blow, who's a Black a Black journalist, New York Times, I think, has written a book and has now done a podcast, which you can find on the television. I can't remember the name of it, but he's calling, for example, for Blacks, especially young people, to come back to the South to bring about changes in the South, because historically we were the majority, and even after many of us left in the Great Migration, we were still in the majority. So he wants people to come back and begin to take over politics, take over the government, uh, through election, of course. But to make these changes, he says, because if we do that, and we're also in the North, we can stop what's going on now, which is more of a negative stereotyping of what it means to be Black and Christian in the world today. So I think both faith and culture are very important aspects of our future, and we need to become more aware of them. We need to study Black history in all of its fullness, because it's still being written. I just finished a book this weekend, I think it was, called Black AF History. I believe you probably know what AF stands for, but Black AF History. And it's a different perspective on Black history, Catholic and Protestant. Um, he starts, as everybody starts, back in the beginning of the American, well, actually, he begins with Prince Henry, the navigator in Portugal, and his adventures in finding all of these Black people supposedly in this abandoned continent called Africa, and how they began importing them. But it also shows how we reacted to and related to what was going on with us and around us, and how that impacted not just the Catholic Church, but the Protestant churches, not just politics, but education and everything like. And it's really, I recommend it to you highly. It's very interesting, because he's trying to show that we are still of significant impact in the world around us, and we need to take advantage of that and use that to work together. We don't have time for silliness in terms of fighting each other over who's this and who's that, who's dark, who's light, who's whatever, who's Catholic, who's Protestant. we should be working to bring about the changes that are needed in this country, especially, but also in the greater world and our churches. Because, for example, the Catholic Church is now, though many will have a fit when you say it, but the Catholic Church is a church of people of color. The fastest growing and largest churches in the world are not in Europe, not in Asia, certainly not in England. They are in South America and they are in Africa. They are churches of color. And we can see the changes, the impact that they're having simply on the fact that for once we have a pope who comes from Argentina. He is not a person of color, no, but he is very much aware of and has been part of the movement to bring more participation and more development in those countries because he realizes, as I'm saying, that that is the future church. It is not going to be a white dominated church because there are not enough white people. It is going to be a black church, a brown church, and we need to be preparing for that. We need to be getting ready for that. And I think that's what he's trying to do in terms of his appointments of cardinals and bishops and things like that. So we'll have to see what's going on, but it is progressing, it is moving forward, and it is an issue that we still have to work on and be concerned about.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. One last question from me, and it's for their own sake. And I'm sorry, I should have asked that question in the previous class, but we're recording this one, so I might have to bring that back.
Okay.
A lot of our students, from my own experience,
Mm-hmm.
the writing skills they're not where they should be. That's
No.
the least I can say. So when we have a seasoned writer in the house, what words of advice can you give to young people who are learning how to write?
I learned how to write by reading. I say that without any doubt. I was a bookworm when I was young. I was also a tomboy, so if I wasn't playing basketball or football, my head was stuck in a book. And I can see in how I write, how I articulate things, that those readings had an impact on me. From the time I can, earliest time I can remember, I've been accused of talking white, which really disturbs me because I said, why is it that if you speak intelligibly and understandably to people, does that mean you're talking white? Or if you get good grades, that you're being white? They don't have a monopoly on intelligence, obviously, or you wouldn't be at Xavier studying right now. And we need to get over this handicap, really, of putting down people who speak intelligently and who can converse and who can read and who can write, as I don't know what, we're supposed to be traitors to the community or something. One of the main things that our forefathers and mothers did when they got out of slavery was not to run to the nearest juke joint or to go and smoke away their problems. They started schools. And in those schools, they educated their children so that they would be more successful than they were. And we need to remember that history. We need to go back even deeper into our history because our history is still not fully uncovered. When I first started teaching in 1988, one of the issues that I brought up was that, we don't have the full understanding of our connection with Africa. And at the time I was teaching, and even before that, when I was studying, basically the understanding was that Blacks had no history. You had nothing of value. And now we realize that Blacks not only have a history, but their history starts with the beginning of time, because of course we now all know that all people, all humanity started in Africa, dispersed after that. But everybody in the world started out with ancestors who are Black, and they need to learn that, and they need to get used to the idea, though it's freaking them out. We need to learn that history so that we can stand firmly today in terms of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to articulate. Like I said, with Charles Blow, for example, to show that there are gifts that we have. The first, 3 of the first popes in the first 100, 200 years of Catholicism were from Africa. They were Africans. St. Augustine is African. This saint is African. That saint is African. Our early participation prior to the founding of the United States was immense. And it still continues to this day if we would just listen and learn from the past. And that's what we have to do. Some people may say that history is boring. It really isn't. As I said, read this book, Reading AF, Black AF History, and you'll see how engaging and thought-provoking and challenging it is really today.
Okay, we will ask Ms. Harrison here to speak on our behalf. Yeah.
Okay. As a representative of the class, can I stand up?
And so she can hear you.
Hello.
I can see it.
As a representative of the class, I stand before you with immense gratitude and honor as I extend our heartfelt thanks to you, Dr. Diana Higgins. We are privileged to have you join us despite your demanding schedule and to share your valuable knowledge and insights of womanism and Black Catholicism. We appreciate not only the time you decided to invest in teaching us, but also the passion, wisdom, and expertise you bring to the table. Additionally, we are excited to share and discuss ideas relevant to today's topic, along with potentially making some connections to materials that we've already read and learned upon up onto this point of class. Once again, on behalf of the entire class, I extend our deepest thanks to you. Your generosity in sharing your time and knowledge with us today is truly appreciated. We are inspired by your dedication to education, and we look forward to the valuable insight you will undoubtedly provide during this session. Thank you for being a guiding force in our educational journey of Black Catholic theology. We are honored to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. That was all the questions you had, though? What happened to the person in the back who had a question earlier?
Change his mind.
He changed his mind?
Yes.
You sure?
I'd
I'd like to hear from one of the male students.
Well, I have Marvin. He started took the first question. There are only 3 or 4 guys in my class.
Good. I'm glad they're in there.
They're in there. There's another man over there.
Okay. Do they have any particular questions?
Well, she's asking you guys.
Yes. Most of the questions were by young women. Are there any questions from the males? Silent, intimidated. Oh dear. We can't have that. We can't have that. Well, I hope you will continue to learn in this class and hopefully begin to speak out in terms of what is going on in the world today, because we need leaders, we need speakers, both male and female. As a womanist theologian, that does not mean I'm opposed to Black men. Womanist theology is a theology of, by, and for Black women, but also in solidarity with those who are in support of them. We are not feminists. Feminists have a problem with men, period, in my opinion. They also have a problem with race as well. Some of them do. But we need to work together as a community. Can't get anywhere with just one half of your people. The women working are doing excellent. The men are doing excellent. Bring it together so that we can bring changes. And if you're not of African descent, but of another, I was going to say race, but there is really no such thing as race. Another background, you have a voice also and need to share that with those around you. So I hope you're more vocal in your class discussions at least, and can get some questions out, and Father John can answer them for you or provoke you to answer them for yourself. But thank you. I enjoyed being with you.
Dr. Hayes, can't thank you enough.
Okay.
Whenever you get back from your sabbatical and you start writing again, whatever project you're working on, please have a section for young people. You know, our experiences and cultures are different. Even coming from the Northeast and coming south, it's a totally different experience, you know, talking to young people in a classroom and the reaction, the response. So I think that for you who are elders in the African-American community, you still have a lot of work to do speaking to them. So maybe a chapter.
Okay. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you. God bless
Excuse
you.
me. Okay.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. Bye-bye. In the meeting, where the heck is my cousin?